Welcome to the Lonely Marketers podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Monique Sollazzo, the Group Head of Marketing at Search Recruitment Group. Monique has a wealth of experience in recruitment marketing, taking her first role as a marketing assistant at Robert Walters in South Africa, before progressing there and moving to the UK to continue her recruitment marketing journey. We talk about her most recent projects, doing a full rebrand where everything was stripped back and restarted. This isn't just a paint job or facelift. This was everything from positioning and messaging, new branding, tone, and everything else that comes with it. Seriously, proper rebrand territory, well worth listening to. We also talked about imposter syndrome and working in an extroverted sales environment as a bit of an introvert. I think we all share bits of that. Getting involved in sales meetings and getting your voice heard is one of the toughest things we have to do, and Monique covers that in great detail. She also likes to prepare to be prepared, so prepare to listen. So, Monique, Group Head of Marketing, you, I don't want to say it's 10 years, but almost 10 years as a recruitment marketer. By my maths isn't great, but looking at LinkedIn, you're almost a decade. It's a long period
Feels
of
like
time.
a lifetime.
So you're another guest. We've had Marie on recently, and she's like me, decade plus veteran. So you've got another impressive recruitment marketing CV, and I think three big roles really in recruitment marketing. You must love it, which feels weird to say.
Yeah, I'm married to it to some extent. I do love it. I love the pace. I love the chaos. I love well, organized chaos anyway. I love that things can change tomorrow and that you can't plan too far ahead. Probably like most people in recruitment, they didn't choose it as as their career in the beginning. It kind of found me. In fact, I interviewed at Robert Walters thinking they were the recruiter for someone else. Meanwhile, it was the marketing role for them. So
Right.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
right.
really
Okay, so that's how
how I got
you got duped. You thought it was
yeah,
a
exactly.
marketing job in another industry, and then it
Yeah,
was
I'm a
actually.
recruiter's nightmare. Clearly, very unprepared for my interview. I would have known that ahead of time.
So yeah, which client is it for? It's not for a client, it's for us. Okay, well, we'll wing
Yeah,
it. And
exactly.
you got the job.
I got the job. I came to the interview. I had a panel of three. I thought, oh, what a very formal recruitment company this is, you know. I
Yeah.
thought it was just a screening call. And about the second question, then I realized that it was for them. And yeah, and they offered me the role on the spot, and that was 10 years ago now.
That's incredible. So you'd got absolutely no preconceptions about the industry whatsoever. Marketing roles prior to that, had you worked in marketing roles
Yeah,
in a different industry? So you were a marketer.
yes, I was. Yes, I didn't just come here unschooled. I started
Yeah, I
my
mean that's
marketing. Yeah,
amazing
my
interview performance. If you didn't know the industry, you didn't know the job, and you got the job.
it must have been my really good personality. But no, I had probably about 5, 6 years marketing experience before that. Started out in banking, a really junior role. I was really just an admin to a marketing team at a sort of a big bank out in South Africa. I did a bit in professional services. I moved into private practice in legal. And I kind of that's where my marketing career started. I actually don't have a formal degree in marketing.
Okay.
It was kind of just luck of the draw that I got into a really junior position and then worked really, really hard.
Yeah, I think that's really admirable because I personally I studied a degree in marketing, but then followed the same path. Started as a marketing assistant. Um, so yeah, when I look back and reflect, what did I learn doing a formal marketing degree other than I remember a couple of diagrams? Um, do I put them into practice now versus what I learned as a marketing assistant and through my career? No. So I'd always advocate that where to listeners, you don't need a formal degree in marketing. You're
Yeah.
proof of that.
No,
You've progressed.
absolutely. I mean, I think marketing changes so quickly. It's fantastic from a confidence perspective. I think having that degree behind your name does give you that sort of I do know what I'm talking about, where I kind of struggled in the beginning to build that confidence. So it was more around lots of trial and error and
Yeah.
questioning sort of imposter syndrome really early on in my career, whether I could even knew what I was doing. But sort of 5 years into my career, I was like, well, clearly it's worked for me thus far. I'm seeing progression in my career. Like it kind of just like dawned upon me, like there's no point in questioning now. No one else is moaning. There's no point in you questioning. Let's just
Yeah,
go for
yeah,
it. But yeah, and then when I started with Robert Walters at that time, I mean, recruitment has taken my career internationally all around the world, which is fantastic. Don't think I would have
yeah,
had that opportunity if I hadn't found recruitment. I started in South Africa as a marketing assistant. I was really just given a list of tasks and I was doing all these things. I was a lone marketer. I was the first of its kind
yeah.
for the South African office. They were sort of supported globally at that stage. And I was lucky enough to be seated next to the MD,
Okay.
just because that was the open desk. But
Yeah,
no, it wasn't very strategically done like that. But that's kind of where I really understood what marketing was for the first time, because I was able to be privy to conversations that, not because he was talking to me, but
yeah,
because he was having conversations at his desk that I was able to overhear. And I realized so quickly where the gap was in that business between marketing and sales. And I knew, like, if I could fill that gap, I would make a real impact,
yeah, yeah,
especially as a new marketing function and a sole resource there. I think it was so important that they got to understand the value of marketing, because they just thought we were the coloring in team, as most
of
leadership
course.
does, and it was like, oh, could you do this flyer for me? Oh, could you just put together this LinkedIn post for me? And I never really understood this purpose, and neither did they.
Yeah.
And so the more time I spent with him sitting next to me, the more I was sort of develop my commercial side.
You
And I
absorbed
think,
it from an early point then, because
yeah,
whether it was fortuitous or not doesn't matter. You had the wherewithal to actually listen,
exactly.
because that's a tough thing to actually listen and absorb, rather than just think, "Oh, that's nothing to do with me." You could have easily put headphones on, tuned out, and got
Yeah.
on with creating flyers and LinkedIn posts.
Yeah, I've got a really bad habit of wanting to be involved in things. I don't know if it's a marketing problem that we all have, but I sort of always was putting my hand up in my early
Yeah,
career,
I think you're right. I think
doing
it's
stuff
a
that just
common trait.
wasn't,
Yeah,
yeah,
problem
doing stuff that
solving.
isn't marketing.
Y-
you know,
Yeah, that comes
um,
with blessing and curse sometimes, doesn't it? Because
yeah,
you can find yourself involved. Often the stuff that gets pushed to us is the not marketing stuff. What you are probably listening and hooking onto is actually strategic stuff that we should be helping with.
exactly. I was like, I think I found my voice. I think that also was like important, is that I found my voice in marketing, and that I wanted
Yeah,
to say things. And so putting up my hand wasn't to take on another task. It was like there was sales meetings happening that I wasn't sitting in, and how could
yeah,
I help drive them forward if I didn't know where they were going? And so I just used to start inviting myself as a minute taker in the beginning. I was like, I'll take your
right.
minutes,
That's a great
and
idea,
then,
because how do you
yeah,
get around that table?
exactly. And then I would always make sure I asked the question, and sometimes it wasn't very intellectual at all, because my knowledge of what they were actually speaking about
Yeah,
was so limited. But I made it a point, and I sort of grew that marketing function to a point where it was valued by the business, not only from what a delivery perspective, which often that's the way in, but it was
yeah,
more for my commercial acumen that
yeah,
developed over that period of time. And then they saw it in the delivery, so we
yeah.
really, really
You
closed the gap
connected the
between
two
sales.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that's a big disconnect often for marketers. Is we're hired as a branch of the business's core, or the center of the
Yeah.
business. We get hired into a position. We don't get hired into a position that's at that table. It's a cliched thing to say, but then how do you know? And I always get frustrated at, well, how can you be running a business and not understand that part of the core, part of the business strategy, part of the growth that everyone wants? You've got to include marketing in that. You can't just stick it out there on the wing and go, you'll figure out what to do. Unless you've got
No.
someone like you who's willing to really drive and take minutes and put yourself
Yeah.
out there.
Like,
Really,
absolutely. I mean, it's really tricky. and I think in recruitment over the years it's gotten much better. But sort of
Yeah.
when I started out, it was really tricky because it was almost like a little boys' club, the table, in
Yeah.
a way, and they had been doing great and pretty successful. So, like, why do they need to change? And
Yeah.
I think it was a balancing act of delivering what they wanted, and but doing it in a way that I had time to deliver stuff that they didn't think they want or didn't
Yeah.
need, and then
Yeah.
show the results in that. And you know what? Like, it took me 5 years before. I would say it took me 5 years before the business actually invited me to the table. I
Yeah.
wasn't just dropping in and forcing my way in there. Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of probably where my career changed quite
Okay.
significantly. My role in the business, I expanded my role into the Middle East, and that's where I started, I think, probably being more strategic than just
Yeah.
this, on this task wheel, this little rabbit going round and round, or hamster going round and round and round, and just sort of springing things out. And I was really, really close with the front office. So that was my in. So it wasn't only
Yes.
the leadership, it was really everybody that's on those calls. I moved from team to team, sat at different desks. I wanted
Yeah.
to really hear them on the phone. I would, they would always just look at me so weird. Like, why is she keep on moving desks? She's
Why are
like
you
hot
bothered?
desking around the office. But I was like, I was really determined to understand what they deal with, so that I
Yeah.
knew that when I do anything, um, that it was going to resonate, or solve a challenge that they were facing. And that was my in. Like, the minute I had that buy-in from them, it really opened up such a different world of marketing and a more enjoyable world for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, to be
You're
able to
closer to
see
revenue
what
then.
make an
You're closer
impact.
to revenue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it dictated so much of the quality of the work that I was able to be involved in,
Yeah.
because I had that hat on, and I sort of did that initial sort of initiation phase. Is what I
Yeah,
like to call it.
it takes some confidence. You've mentioned, like, I think everyone listening will share a level of imposter syndrome. How did you break through that to have that confidence to go and sit with what, I'm stereotyping somewhat, but what tends to be quite an extroverted bunch of colleagues that we'd argue they don't get us and what we do, but I think arguably we don't do what you've said you've done. We don't get close enough to them. How did you break? How did you go from that imposter syndrome to being gutsy enough to go and sit in a team of recruiters? Or I'm sure there was a lot of banter and loud voices. How did you deal with that?
To be honest, I haven't conquered it all. So let's just let me be frank with that. I think I became more salesy. And when I
Okay.
say salesy, I adopted fake it till you make it. So I adopted the personality to a lot of extent. So I became overly extroverted. I was
Yeah.
always at the events with the staff. If they were doing anything socially, I would make sure that I was there. And it was really uncomfortable for me in the beginning because naturally I love to be behind the closed curtain and I love to
Yeah.
just do my work. And then when I see it out there, like, no one really knows who did it. And that was kind of my way of dealing with things. But the imposter syndrome, I think, you know, I consider myself pretty privileged. I had a great leadership who gave recognition when it was due. And that
Yeah.
really helped build silently their confidence. But it was just about perseverance, I think. It's like,
Okay.
not, I don't think only in recruitment marketing, but we don't tend to do a lot of new things all the
Yeah.
time. We do a lot of the same things, and eventually doing those same things and reviewing and adjusting and improving each step naturally just builds that. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I get nervous going to the table, but
Uh-huh.
I prepared for it. So I always made sure I had a question, and I
Yeah.
would make sure that it was a question that would cause them to think. They might not know the answer,
Yeah.
um, and then I had really, really good relationships with all levels in the office, which helped so much because the more junior were more appreciative of obviously what we do.
Of course.
Um, and So if I needed a little boost of confidence, I'll probably go sit with them for a little bit, and they'll tell me how
Yeah.
great it is. That LinkedIn
Yeah.
post was fantastic, Monique.
Yeah.
When there's not
Yeah.
exactly the recognition but it did. It all helps. I also think I wanted to push boundaries and do things differently. So I was always on the lookout outside of our industry about what was going on and what I could take from them and adopt here, because all recruitment businesses, as much as we all want to think we're unique, we all sell the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was really about coming in with something new, and whether it worked or not was irrelevant. Was the fact that there was new coming in, and
Yeah.
that helped, because then I became almost seen as someone that was different, and
Yeah.
that helped the confidence, absolutely, and the imposter
Yeah.
syndrome. But to be honest, you still get it. I don't think it ever really goes away.
Yeah, yeah. I think, like I said, maybe it comes with the territory. Like if you've got certain personality characteristic, you end up gravitating towards a job like marketing. You might be quite creative, but then that comes with, like you described it, that desire to be behind the curtain, not front of house. So I think that will really resonate with a lot of listeners, and it's just admirable to hear. Yeah, you've got so far in your career, but you still have to kind of coach yourself to overcome that trepidation of sitting around a board table.
Yeah,
Or sitting around a board table is one thing, contributing and planning for it rather than just thinking you've made it by sitting there, getting invited to the meeting. But then if you just sit there and absorb rather than contribute, these kind of
yeah,
boards won't see that as value add, will they? So I think, yeah, be prepared to prepare. But yeah, that's really impressive stuff. One of the biggest challenges you could potentially have at any business, let alone a recruitment business, is a rebrand.
yeah.
And what are we? A week since you just launched a rebrand for one of the brands you're responsible for. So we touched on this briefly before we hit record, and I had to rudely interrupt and say, "Save this for the recording." So can we go back to where we were and just talk us through that? Because tough market conditions, taking on a rebrand's always hard. But yeah, talk us through why it came about, the objective of the rebrand, and yeah, I think you're going to tell us some detail everyone will be interested
Sure.
in.
Sure. So, well, rebrand for Henderson Scott, who traditionally was a technology recruitment business, boutique size, and has a presence in the UK and somewhat in Europe. And within the group, we have two brands. We have Search, who's your sort of your multidiscipline staffing,
Yeah,
high volume, and with the two, they are both strategically placed in the market at different ends.
yeah,
And we're doing at Search, they were doing finance, they were doing marketing, they were doing sales, and they were doing legal, which is almost what your professional services field, but they were sitting under the Search brand. And so therefore the brand, the messaging, all the
yeah,
marketing just wasn't suited for them, because traditionally they were suited for your high volume staffing.
yeah.
And within the group, we had the technology business, who has been around for a long time, has a decent brand
Hmm.
equity in the UK market, and work on the senior end, because technology is sort of becoming in that professional recruitment
Yeah,
space. And
yeah.
so, as a business, strategically, it was to move those four divisions from Search
Got it.
into Henderson Scott and then reposition them. So it wasn't just a cosmetic rebrand. It was we sort of adjusted the entire value proposition, and then who they will be, and then we've now taken them to market as of last week with the new look and feel, but also a brand new offering. And we've done the same across the pond in the US with the US
Yeah.
Henderson Scott business, who has sort of been around for a year, already playing in the professional space, but had a technology look and feel to it, because
Okay.
was under the Henderson Scott umbrella.
Got it.
So yeah, so that was what how we got there. And the idea is to take this brand now and position them as a global professional recruitment business,
Yeah.
through its offering, through its brand identity, through its targeting, and eventually, hopefully, we'll see the revenue from that.
Of course. So, like, you've touched on something there that's really interesting to me because I've been working on something similar, positioning. And I think people don't really, unfortunately, recruitment marketers probably don't get involved in much of that. It's not commonplace. So, again, admirable that you're working on something that's so fundamental. I don't think recruitment businesses have thought too much about positioning. So how did you even get started on that? Like, who sparked that? Right, it's not just about making us look less tech. It's not just about moving more sectors under this umbrella. We're going to reposition ourselves as well. How did that conversation come about?
Yeah, so I mean, it came from the top, thankfully. I mean, the CEO of the group is from a professional recruitment background. I'm from a
Yeah,
professional recruitment background. So we did have the advantages of understanding the market. And I think
yeah,
that's what really sort of kicked off the conversation about who we want to be and how we want
yeah,
to be seen. And from that point, we were able to be like, so how do we need to position ourselves once we understand who we are, what we're trying to do, and who we're trying to do it for? And
yeah,
then, so what is that? How does that position us in the market, and who's there at the moment, and how we're going to cut through the noise? So,
yeah,
that was our step. We also, you know, we are, as much as we are a good size, I would call us a sort of a mid-size recruitment group. We have 450 heads, so decent size.
yeah,
We, in a tough market, it's money isn't just running freely. So we
yeah,
had to be really critical about where we were going to bring in the skills to help us, because we understand that even as a experienced marketer, I'd never done a rebrand of this scale where it wasn't just a cosmetic update,
yeah,
it was an actual change of who we are, and that impacted both internal and our clients and candidates. Internally, they were becoming something else.
yeah,
How they position themselves. We're no longer technology recruitment consultants anymore. They now
yeah,
were able to cross sell across multiple divisions. So this project was, for a marketer, is a dream. It's what I call the dream. When you get to go through the entire process,
yeah,
and fundamentally be involved at every step. And it was the first time that I realized that that's probably what every marketer wants to do, is be able to be on all those levels. So go from the top, and then the impact on every touch point, internal and external, and then see it come to life at the end. So it was a fantastic learning experience. I don't think in my lifetime I'll get another opportunity to go through a rebrand of that extent, but we had buy-in from the leadership, and it was driven
yeah,
from them. We knew exactly what we wanted to be.
yeah,
We knew exactly who we wanted to do, who that was for,
yeah.
and we understood the landscape of our competitors. And so that, I would say, is the foundation before you even think about how you want to be positioned, is to have that first, and then you can find your lane, and that should
Yeah.
sort of help you with your positioning.
That's it's so interesting just on the premise of positioning. I don't think I know it's touched on whether you've got a marketing degree or not. I really don't think that's important, but positioning will have been mentioned way back when studying or whatnot. But it's actually the fact of people look at positioning and think, where are we? And it's actually, no, you decide where you want to be. And once you've decided where you want to be, you've got to make that happen. And that the toughest thing that I'm envisaging is joining that to sales, because you can put a website together, you can control
Yeah.
what marketing is perceived to control. But the most important touch points towards the business end of the entire process is going to be sales and how they talk, the words they use, the way they approach a candidate, the way they approach a client. That's a tough gig to influence that bit. And that could really break positioning. If they're still talking the language they've always talked, while your website
Exactly.
and your LinkedIn says a different thing. So it's
Yeah.
critical for any positioning project, whether you're rebranding on top of it or not, or positioning leads the rebrand, which is the right way around. Yeah, that must have been tough to get everyone on the
Yeah.
same page. Now, even with leadership help saying, yes, we are doing this, you must have to drive quite a bit to, because they won't just instinctively look at marketing collateral and go, all right, I know. So did you work with
Yeah.
teams on
Yeah.
scripts,
Yes.
messaging?
Yeah. So I ran brand workshops
Yeah,
in different stages of the project. One around the value proposition, so they understood that. Focused a lot on the value of the
yeah,
value of the new value proposition. Because for a salesperson, I just kind of put myself in their shoes. Like, what's in it for them? That's what it's like for
yeah,
them, right? What's
yeah,
in it for me? How is it going to impact my clients? How is it going to impact my candidates? What's the benefit? And we literally drafted that script for them.
yeah,
We were able to we sold the value of being a consultant in that way, how it impacts the money they can make. We took it right down to what motivates a consultant
yeah,
and brought it there to their clients. We drafted the brand story so that we were all singing off the same sheet, because
yeah,
ultimately would make absolutely no difference how beautiful Henderson Scott's website looked if Joe Soap on the phone picked up and was not singing that tune, you know.
yeah. And that's
We
where it
also,
falls down so much. You can hear
yeah,
it on. I can remember, more junior positions where no matter what you did, you couldn't get the sales team to change, and their directors and leaders wouldn't understand why it changed. So you do have to come right down to brass tacks and go, look, if you start positioning the business and yourself like this, you'll be able to charge greater fees. You're adding more value, so you might
exactly.
need to do less placements, but you'll still take home the same revenue for the business and yourself. So is
Yeah,
that your advice? You have to go right down to that.
you
This is
have to
what's in
go
it for
down,
you.
and absolutely. And I know a lot of marketers be like, it's like we literally are telling them what to say, like, you know,
Yeah,
but if you want it to work, you kind of just need to do that. And sometimes, like, I feel like marketers, we just need to take our ego out of it at this stage. Like, we want it to
yeah,
work, and we know what recruiters are like. So
yeah,
just go and do it, because they
yeah,
don't know. We often assume that, we think like, why wouldn't they know that? Like, no, they don't.
yeah,
I've come to
yeah,
realize they don't. And so rather having it really clear for them is important. I also, in their outreach, part of their outreach as part of the rebrand, I work really closely with them around that outreach. So where we anticipated it would fall down was more around their confidence in communicating the new value proposition
okay,
and the value, even though we had
yeah,
explained it to them. And
yeah,
so we wrote lots of draft sheets. We did loads of FAQs in terms of, if a client asks you something about their contract and the impact of their contract. So it was really all departments came together, both operations, sales, marketing, tech, finance, because there were so many moving pieces within this rebrand that a consultant would need to be able to answer to some level, because they weren't going to phone Monique up to say, why are we
what
going
do I
from blue
say?
to
Well,
green?
put the potential, put the prospects on hold and give you a call. Say, what should I say again?
Yeah, exactly. We also chose brand advocates across the business at different levels, right? So
Mm.
we had directors nominated for brand advocates, but we also had brand new people to the business, young consultants, and so that they were able to have a say in it. They were part of
Yeah,
the process. This was an 18-month project, so they were part of the process from the beginning. They were part of some of the decision making. Some of them, obviously, I mean, not everyone was allowed to lift their hand up for a choice. And when we took the brand to market, we're taking it in phases.
yeah,
And so phase one was very much like the website, the look and feel, ensuring that our internal teams understand the transition,
yeah,
understand all that value. We spend a lot of time with the front office to get them to understand it. Also, people just naturally don't like change. And so
yeah.
we were dealing with a lot of, how do I answer this question? How do I answer that to clients that they speak to every day? Now they
Yeah.
were all of a sudden getting nervous to speak to them. And it was it was really about getting so close to them during this period. And I mean, we're only 1 week in, so don't get me wrong, we're not out the woods just yet. There are still things that I'm sure the consultants will bring forward. It was also, we had to really educate them around what a professional recruitment business is. because
Mm-hmm.
all of them had been working in these 5 silos, and now they were going to be one business going to market
Yeah.
and coming in with individual. We didn't want to end up with 5 individual businesses. Um, and then
Because
the
the
brand itself
opportunity
was
is
not.
you can work with clients across the spectrum, so it's got to be joined up. They don't
Absolutely.
want to hire a senior tech person off one of your teams, and then when they go, actually, we need a new FD, a finance director, or CFO. Can you help us with that? And then get, yeah, of course we can. But then it's like a totally different business when they get handed over to
Exactly, a
that
totally
team.
different experience. So we spent a lot of time on with we actually had an agency join us in the initial stages from an identity, from the creative perspective,
Yeah,
and they um, they were really critical in the success of understanding sort of how we should implement. I think the implementation stage was critical, and their guidance was really critical. And so it was worth the investment. So
yeah,
often, we want to, I have quite a large marketing team for a recruitment business, to be frank. Like, I have a team of 10 for a company of 450 heads,
wow,
which is one of the largest marketing teams I've had for a company of that size. So I consider myself fortunate where we have creatives, we have a design team, we have digital, we have all the arms, but we still
yeah,
went externally for the expertise. That it wasn't because we couldn't do it ourselves, it was around the pieces that we don't know what to ask, like how to implement it on the front office, how do we ensure
yeah,
that we're all sing off the same. And because of their experience with others, they were able to guide us, and then we were able to tailor that for our business quite well. And that was why I think, if someone phones Henderson Scott now, they should all be saying the same thing, because
yeah,
they've
yeah.
kind of been like taught that way.
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's like you say, we assume sales know things, or we assume they'll push back if they're being told what to do. I think a lot of them, yeah, change is difficult, but they'll probably appreciate the instructions and guidance because they're so busy. Like, do I want to think before every phone call, or do
Yeah.
I want to know before every phone call? Let me do the research into the person, but I know the value proposition. I know what I can bring to them. If I've got confidence in that, picking up the phone to speak to someone becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah.
If you know what you're about to ask for, that makes more sense than getting on the phone and then being like, yeah, I do recruitment. Do you need any people for jobs? Like, I, I'd rather know that I'm going in confident, knowing I can add value. I was going to come on to team, but you've beat me to it. So 10 people, that's impressive, incredible that you can get the buy-in to invest so much in marketing. And what's interesting is still having the kind of wherewithal to seek external help when needed. So this was obviously a major project, and I think for smaller teams, they're probably more dependent on external assistance. But it sounds to me like you made the decision when it makes sense. A lot of a marketer, like let's say you can only build a team of one or two, it's quite a balance because you're like, oh, I don't want to upset someone if I bring external help in. And sometimes it's not about whether you can do it internally; it's more about what additional value the external perspectives bring. If you
Yeah.
end up just a team in house, no matter how big you are, you get a bit internal focused. So talk us through your team. How's it grown to such a level? And is it success breeds success? Monique, you've done a great job here. Where are we missing? Do you want to bring someone in house? How's it built over time?
Yeah, so the team is it's actually changed quite significantly over the last 12 months. I won't lie, we've adapted to the change within. Um,
Yeah.
but my team have been in this business, majority of them, for probably a decade themselves.
Wow.
So I have a really experienced team. I'm fortunate to have quite an experienced team that I work with, and they've only worked for one brand,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So as much as it's an advantage in certain ways, it came with a lot of challenges when we're now inherited Henderson Scott, a brand new brand in a totally
Yeah.
different market.
Yeah.
And so the technical skill is on point. They know it. They've done it for years. But the how do I say this? The what else is out there, and
Yeah.
we needed that, and it wasn't good. It couldn't come from me. So I came into the business with an established team,
Yeah.
and then we started the rebrand. So we needed that fresh perspective, and we work in a very flat structure. I'm pretty straightforward, if you didn't notice that already, but like I just say things how it is, and I think
Yeah.
that they appreciate that. Like I have a design team of 3, I have a digital team of 3, I have a content team. I'm blessed from this sake compared to teams I've worked for in larger companies before in
Yeah.
terms of the skill set, but they were at capacity. And I
Mhm.
think it was about recognizing that they are at capacity from a task perspective. And if I want them to have the space to be creative and different and have a different perspective, they need to be on the journey with us, and we need to be guided by
Mhm.
people that can help, that can bring to the table what I can't bring or what my team can't bring, but at the same time take on some of the work that allows them to have the creative space to be able to contribute to this project.
Yeah.
And so
That's a
that's why we
really
went that
it's
route.
you see it time and again where if it's a small team, the frustration from outside of the marketing function, let's call it, is that, well, there's nothing innovative. Why are we not doing these new things? And it's because the team is only big enough to cater for business as usual. You can't expect, like, people, like a creative marketer has to have time to be creative, and
Yeah.
you can't put. I've said this on LinkedIn before. You can't put 2 hour slot on a Tuesday morning for creativity. You need more time. It might be
Yeah.
when you're walking the dog. It might be when you're in the shower. It might be while you're doing some shopping where an idea comes. But then when you get to your desk to actually flesh that idea out or speak to your team about it, well, where's that opportunity if you are get this email out, design this, do this, and it's all
Exactly.
and all the while you're getting Teams messages, Slack messages, whatever you use, and emails and people coming up to you and phone calls. I think there is a serious lack of time given
Yeah.
to marketers to actually think creatively.
And
Sounds like
I mean,
you're going about that
yeah.
in the right way though. You're giving people that time to breathe.
Yeah. I think together we got there as a team. You know, in the beginning, and it's very normal and it's very common. I've been there, all of us have been there at some stage where we are the reactive marketer.
Yeah,
And, it's if there is a really comprehensive marketing strategy in place, you'll be less bogged down with reactive tasks. And that then gives you that time,
yeah,
because the business isn't going to carve out time. You're right. Like they're not going to carve out time and be like, well, take 5 hours, Monique, to think.
yeah,
That's so I don't get paid to think. Um, I get paid
yeah,
to do.
yeah,
So when we are really, really structured from a strategy perspective, and we go back to it all the time. So
yeah.
I don't think marketing can ever get away with not having reactive work,
Of
especially in
course.
recruitment with consultants requiring things each day. But if you're the percentage, I would say when I started in the group, we must have been doing about 70% reactive work. And
Yeah.
that I would say at the moment we're doing about 30% reactive work.
Okay.
And
Yeah. You
but that's
flipped it completely.
we flipped it. So now we are driving things. We are in the driver's seat of the activity that we do, and that allows us to then control the time that we have.
Yeah.
And so the creative teams, they have their own time, but also as a collective we have a time. The digital team have their own time, but as a collective we have our own time as well, where we
Yeah.
can collaborate. And my team is very collaborative. They love to work together, and that makes such a difference, because more brains just make things, we'd get to the place faster.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
different skill sets can lean on each other and lend each other ideas, right? So a digital
absolutely.
person can still be creative and vice
Oh,
versa.
absolutely.
And the best you're going to get is when they get a chance to chat ideas through and bounce ideas off each other. Um, thinking about obviously huge project, good team in place. We're not too far from thinking about budgets and next year. I don't know how you're financial year works, but still the start of a calendar year, everyone starts thinking about, okay, so what's the big thing on the horizon for you guys? Is it to force through this rebrand, or is there other big projects that you're going to have to get stuck into going into 2025, which sounds scary?
Yeah, no, I can't believe we're there already. Yeah, so the rebrand, obviously, I think that will continue for definitely into next year, but
Yeah.
we are expanding. So across
Okay.
the US, we're opening more offices, which is a good sign in a tough market. It's rare.
Well, yeah,
Um,
people listening, I think this is really good to hear because, yeah, there's no getting away from it. It's been a tough year. Let's not
exactly.
sugarcoat it. But for a business of your size to be still pushing ahead and going, yeah, it's been tough, but we've got faith that we can get through
Yeah,
it. So that's really exciting then. So US operations opening up,
yeah,
continue the rebrand. That's
yeah. We
talk
want
us
to
through.
expand.
You've got that
Yeah,
foresight as well. This is really impressive that
yeah.
you know where the business is going.
Which is fantastic. Like I've been in positions, and we've all been there, where we have no idea what the business objectives are, and so we're just running in the dark, really.
Yeah,
But yeah, so we do have a very clear idea of what the sort of the three focuses of the business is over the next 12 to 24 months. And that has now filtered into our strategy. So it's the expansion over in the US, so opening of more offices just so we can have a larger footprint there. They are doing fantastically, even in a terrible market. They are doing
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And then across the pond, it's repositioning search. Now that we've sort of diluted the offering, as some people will call it, we've taken out,
Yeah.
they will refocus on that general staffing market. And so it's
Okay.
around really the existing clients that we work, just doing more with them because they've been around for 35 years. They've got a fantastic database. They've been successful. They've been through hard times before, and it's now about sort of increasing the revenue within our core focus, like construction, like in our healthcare, where we're good at, traditionally really
Yeah.
good at. And then on the Henderson Scott UK side, we're looking to expand our footprint. So not from a location perspective, but from a market perspective into Europe. So we've seen
Yeah.
slow successes in Europe on the technology team, and so now we're going to take the four new professional sectors and see if we can cross sell those into those markets that we've seen success in technology. So we're certainly not bored.
Yeah, it's an exciting plan, and just to reiterate that just knowledge of what the business wants to achieve, and it also sounds like it's not just the business wants to achieve this next quarter, next year. You've got 18 months, 24 months, like
Yeah,
roadmap of things that you can then align your planning, your headcount. So yeah,
yeah,
that's not to rub it into other listeners, but it sounds like you're in a nice place.
yeah. Like to be fair, it's you. How do I say this? It's I've been on both sides,
Yeah,
um, and we all want to be where in an environment that sort of I'm in at the moment. But they weren't always there.
of course.
Um,
Yeah, it's taken a lot
and
of tough work and hard
exactly,
conversations and stressful days to actually get to this position.
exactly, and like, and that's kind of everybody listening. That's sort of like, oh, she's got it so great. Like I'm never gonna get there. Like it's about just persevering. It's about like being really, really good at less is more. I believe that in marketing, we want to be everywhere. We don't need to be like just be really good in two
Yeah,
areas. Show that you drive revenue, and I promise you, it will just
yeah,
click into place.
yeah.
Um,
That's
but
great
it does
advice.
take time. It does take
Yeah.
time.
Perseverance, time, and focus, right? Like
Yeah,
get these things right and keep driving that home. Um,
exactly.
let's move to what you see in other recruitment marketers do. So I love to ask these questions. What thing can you see? Like we're in a community, we see what each other's doing, we chat about different things. What's the one thing you see other recruitment marketers or recruitment companies are doing? One marketing tactic or approach that you just think, give it up, it's never going to work. Like knock it on the head.
Um, I think it's not one particular thing that any one recruitment company I've seen that's like stop doing that. I do believe
Yeah,
in a multi-touch approach, but I
yeah,
do think we need to remember that we're still in the people's business, And so having that balance of traditional marketing and digital is still so key in our sector. And I see so many recruiters just pivoting into the digital space and
Okay.
forgetting those other touch points. And, you know, in our world of recruitment, because we are people,
Yeah.
we have to remember that it's still the connection, not just the storytelling on the platform. It's about building that physical connection. And so it's more around not to do digital. Absolutely, you need to do it, but it's still having that opportunity for relationships, for your business to build relationships in the
Yeah.
real world.
So it's
And so
marketer influence through sales, like we've discussed earlier,
yeah,
where a lot of
yeah,
marketing teams will go, right, we do all the online stuff. We'll
yeah,
leave sales to do that. But that's where you get that
exactly.
split of mixed messages, mixed experience.
Absolutely. And also it's like you separate yourself from the front office, and that is absolutely not what we need to be doing. We need to be
No.
getting closer to them. So, and yes, sometimes that means that you'll be doing all the work that they should be doing, but it eventually just you become a team. And I think like I would love to go back in time almost in recruitment marketing when sales and marketing were more of a team, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Because we've so focused on digital in a way,
Yeah.
we've separated ourselves,
Yeah.
from that because we now talk a language that they don't understand.
Yeah, that's
But
very
yeah,
true.
so
We've gone polarized, and then when you try and bring that back together, it's tougher. Whereas if we'd have
yeah,
been on the same page when email first came about, I can
yeah,
see how that would be. It's easy in
yeah,
hindsight. Flip
exactly.
flip side flip side of that one. What kind of marketing approach? What stuff's going on that maybe you see in other kind of sectors or other businesses that you think we're missing a trick on as recruitment marketers? What should we be introducing to our businesses that we just overlook all the time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think we're short of trying new things. I think recruitment marketing, we're quite experimental actually a lot of the
Hmm.
times. But I think because we do tend to see new trends often, we change quite quickly. So I
Yeah,
still think in our sector, the world of automation we still need to spend a lot more time. It's still technically quite new. And
yeah,
I still chat to marketers in the sector that haven't yet even gotten there.
yeah, yeah,
So I think the world of automation and personalization from a digital perspective is something that is a trend that will continue to develop over time. And I think as marketers in recruitment, we need to really upskill ourselves in that space because it
hmm,
is such a foreign world. If you've come from a traditional marketing background like me, you've learned digital marketing on the ground.
yeah,
You didn't come in as a digital marketer, so you've
yeah.
developed your skill sort of organically. And
So,
I'm certainly don't sit here today saying that I know everything about. I don't. I have a digital team, thank God, that can guide me. But I think that will really. I think automation is going to really change the way in which we are our efficiency. I
hmm,
think it's going to really change the way we connect on in the digital space with through personalization, something that the traditional marketing we might be able to bring some of that good stuff into that world. I think it allows
yeah,
it, but I think it takes time, and I think it takes skill, and I think it takes again a really good understanding of who the market is and the people that are representing the brand,
yeah,
which are the sales, in order
yeah,
for it to be successful. So yeah, that's definitely one for me.
yeah. So keep the objective in mind and learn how this influx of new technology and names and
Yeah,
all the AI, the automation stuff, still keep the end objective in mind, which is human to
absolutely.
human kind of
Yeah.
conversation. That's interesting, right? Last few questions, quick fire round. Whether work or at home, the one piece of talking about technology, the one piece of technology that you couldn't live without.
There's quite a few there actually. I'll probably say at the moment my latest tech, which is my favorite. So let's go that I can't live
Yeah.
without ChatGPT. It literally controls my life right
Okay.
now. So
Wow.
so
You're
I
all
use
in.
it.
You're all in on Chat GPT.
I am all in. My entire team is on it. I think it's
Yeah.
important that we stay ahead of, or at least aligned to it. So we understand its impact. We don't utilize it for content generation or anything like that. It's more for ideation. And I think it's fantastic. I use
Yeah.
it to help me work through the filing cabinet of my brain.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it's
a
pretty
great way to
full.
put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Use
I
it as an
really,
assistant rather than a
absolutely.
colleague.
Yeah. So I've been using it sort of, I would say, for the past 12 months every day.
Yeah.
I do believe the paid function is better. I believe that we need to utilize it to make us faster, more efficient, to help us understand. It also really helps me in my conversations with leadership and senior members of and stakeholders. So if I often they don't understand my language, and so I
Okay.
will verbal vomit into ChatGPT what I'm trying to say, and then
Simplify it or
I'll
explain it in.
simplify it for me and make sort of align it to what's important to them so that when I communicate it, it's clear. So
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic tool. And I found a new one recently that's helped me organize my life is Notion. So
Okay.
right
Yeah.
now it's a productivity app, but I just use it to help me manage my diary
Yeah.
because as all marketers, I sit on more calls than actual do marketing these days.
Yeah.
And I need to build in time to think. I need to build in
Hmm.
time for to be creative. And that app really allows that. So I preload all my preferences and then it manages my diary around it. So it's like I'm almost forced to build that time in, which is fantastic. Because
So
yeah,
efficiency tools, two of them there. I like that. So
yeah.
maybe this will cross over into the next question. Maybe not. What's your favorite brand?
Oh, so my favorite brand is actually not in the services sector at all at the moment.
Hmm.
From a marketing perspective, my favorite brand right now is Gymshark.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with
Yeah,
that. I
I
don't have
think,
any of the stuff, but yeah, I'm familiar with the
yeah.
brand. Yeah,
I
it's
don't have any
interesting.
of their stuff either.
I
I'm
just
not their
love
target
the
audience. I think that they've done a fantastic job at understanding who they are. Their positioning is on point.
yeah,
They have done the
yes,
research. They understand their target market. They have they haven't spread themselves across every channel. They've focused around social media and engagement, and they're really, really good at it. They've got a fantastic social media strategy that allows them to connect again with the person, with
yeah,
their audience. Yeah, I think Ben and his team have done a fantastic job. And they've seen the success, right? They've scaled incredibly well over the last couple of years. But their marketing, you can see they have a clear marketing strategy, and every single output is connected to it.
that's really
They are.
interesting. Positioning, appreciating positioning that tells you you're not the target market. That's
Yeah,
really
like I'm
to
not
be able
for
to spot.
they. I'm not their target market, and I'm okay with that. I look at
Yeah,
them from a fantastic brand perspective. They've got an excellent brand, but and so therefore I don't feel obligated to buy their things.
yeah, yeah.
But I fully understand why they are so successful for their market, and they are proof in the pudding that if you truly like if you have a strong brand, a great value proposition or product, and you
And
understand your
know who
audience,
your
you
audience.
will
Yeah,
you will make money.
yeah. Yeah, that's it's a great way. So this one, maybe not as strategic mind, just everyone has a brand that they hate. They just can't deal with, can't stand the logo, can't stand the approach. Who's your least favorite brand?
It's tricky. Like, I try to give brands the benefit of the doubt most of the time.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
it's harsh.
I,
It's
I,
harsh because we don't know the constraints the teams
yeah,
under. But
exactly. I think, God, you're going to put me on the spot and make me name one. Should never apply for a job there one day then. Uh, I, I think it's more an industry than a brand, but I think
right,
what I've seen is the insurance industry really struggle from a marketing
right,
and brand perspective. I think they haven't understood how to pivot their brand to connect with an audience, and they still trying to sell a product.
yeah. It's all a bit
So a
samey,
lot of
right? It's
yeah,
either
it's
corporate and
and
blue or cartoony and yellow. That's all I
yeah, and
think of
often they will
with
say like,
insurance.
no, exactly. Often they will say, insurance is a pretty boring product to sell. But to be honest, we in recruitment, like, it's a pretty boring product to sell.
Yeah.
Like, we sell the
Yeah.
same thing every day. It doesn't evolve over time. You know, a
Yeah.
person is a person, a skill set is a skill set.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've ever tried to connect.
I know what you
And
mean.
I see it quite often. And the newer brands, they just come out with really bold colors and a really bold
Yeah.
brand, but the offering itself is just hasn't evolved over the time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it's
Yeah.
more sector than a brand.
No,
I would say.
it's fair, and I think it's a great observation. I don't think anyone listening will go, "Oh no, you're wrong." I really love X in the
I
insurance
really
sector.
love that insurance
They've
company.
really yeah. I would not get insurance from anyone else because I love them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a great point. And the one to finish on is my favorite. What's your favorite swear word? Which one do you like to use
Oh,
often when things are great, things are going wrong?
yeah. I can't lie on here because if my team will hear this back and be like, her favorite, they know my favorite word. My favorite word is definitely the F word. It's my second favorite F word after Friday. So
Ah, nicely put. I like it. You said it off camera. I heard you say it off camera. You said, "What if we make
exactly.
fuck
I
ups?"
say
And I
I'm trying to be
said,
really
"Don't worry
ex-
about it." Um,
yeah,
and the good news is there was no fuck ups whatsoever.
exactly. No fuck ups
You,
whatsoever.
Yes, I got it out of you. So, Monique, that's been that. Honestly, I compliment people when they come on and tell us stories and things like that. But I think that's one of the most strategic recordings I've done, whereby you've talked about positioning and that a rebrand's not just a fresh color scheme and a nice design. I genuinely think listeners will appreciate all you've shared with us. I think I'm incredibly grateful for your time. Thanks for giving that up on
Kieran,
a
thank you.
Friday morning. And yeah, I look forward to this getting released and some of the feedback. Thank you for listening to the Lonely Marketers podcast. If you would like to join like-minded recruitment marketers in our WhatsApp group, visit the LinkedIn page and scan the QR code in the banner. This podcast is created by the team at Pager. For more information about how Pager can help build personal brands for your recruiters and scale your content distribution efforts, visit pager.co. PAIGER.co. You can find me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect for more content about recruitment marketing.